I don't know how to make this a full story because I've already talked about this before, and the White House has already announced that the scandal is over. They said they were going to do an investigation, but then they realized, wait, that would have to come with an investigation. And so they said, never mind. On the Signal chat where they accidentally added an Atlantic journalist, which then showed that our cabinet officials for our government, that, you know, our top intelligence official, top defense officials, were all just hanging out in a Signal chat, communicating with each other on classified information for active military operations that risks U.S. personnel. And the oopsie doopsie accidentally leaked it to this journalist. Oops. And I mean, that's putting aside the fact that at the same time, the Pentagon was publishing reports saying that Signal has security failures. And nobody has really tackled the idea of how do we have governmental oversight if Signal has a function to delete messages every 24 hours? How do we preserve this information to make sure that we don't have a bunch of illegal decisions or illegal activities being done by our presidency? Like, there has to be some means to preserve this. It can't not just be the entirety of our presidential cabinet's discussions or just completely just auto deleted. Like you're trying to share your nudes on Snapchat and scared of somebody taking a screenshot. No, this is our nation's defense. This is our nation's economy. This is our nation's management. It's a little bit more complicated than that. We need to keep the record. Either way, we're finding out, and this might be why the Trump team so quickly said, sure, we'll do an investigation. We got nothing to hide. And then we had the White House press secretary coming out saying, well, we consider this over. It's over and done with. Don't worry about it. You know, you don't really, well, what about that investigation? Well, we consider this all over. Well, the reason why they probably wanted to close it down is we're now finding out that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and his team were regularly setting up Signal chats to coordinate the official work of his office, including on issues such as Ukraine, China, Gaza, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. And this is from 4 separate sources reporting to Politico, specifically Dasher Burns, on these Signal chats. 2 of the people that were talking to Politico said that they were in or have direct knowledge of at least 20 of the chats. And every single one of them said that they saw instances of sensitive information being discussed in these chats. That means information that you and I should not be able to know about. And if you and I should not be able to know about it, you know who else should not be able to know about it? The Russians, the Chinese, anybody that could accidentally be added to the Signal group chat, anybody that could access the messages as Michael Waltz or any other number of officials are visiting foreign countries. For examples, when we have Steve Witkoff visiting Russia, the idea that he was talking in any Signal chat in relation to anything, because there was a lot of fear when we found out that he was in Russia at the time of these Signal chats. We were trying to figure out whether he sent messages during his time in Russia, whether he sent it after. Steve Witkoff continues to claim it was after, because he probably knows that at the same time he was sending those messages, we were getting these concerns and reports from Trump's Pentagon saying that Signal was not that secure, especially in places like Russia. And so if he wasn't talking in that one Signal chat, which might be true, what if he was talking in one of the 20 others? And again, these are just 4 sources, and 2 of them are saying of the 20 Signal chats that they know of. Now, we know that the Trump campaign team was using Signal chats all along the campaign season. All along 2024, it was Signal chats. They liked the ease of it. They liked how simple it was. They liked how it could connect to people's phone numbers, probably. They probably were in love with the 24-hour message deletion, which, again, for the campaign trail is fine. For the documentation of presidential communications, not so fine. Once you win the election, you know, the regulations on you and your actions change because you just became the most powerful man on the planet, allegedly. But 20, just from these 2 people, meaning there's probably more, but 20 are the ones that we can get reports of from these sources to Politico. Again, if Steve Witkoff was chatting in one of these Signal group chats while he was in Russia, and hell, you know what? I keep saying in Russia because, you know, that's my hyper focus, but we have other officials who are visiting Saudi Arabia, both for the communications with the Russians and the Ukrainians and Prince Salman, and also a host of other issues. And is Saudi Arabia going to restrict itself from trying to access Americans' American officials private communications within their country if they think they can get away with it? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't hold a naivete about the ethics of the Saudi intelligence services. Mr. Embassy Chopper, I don't think is going to think, oh, that's beneath us. They might not want to get caught. But I mean, if our team is fumbling and stumbling like this, how likely do you think it is that they're going to catch them, if not relying on the industry professionals that many of them are laying off purely for loyalty tests? And when I say purely for loyalty tests, I mean that. I mean that we have Trump sycophants running to the White House telling them, hey, I know that this guy who works at the National Security Council is not sufficiently loyal to Trump. Fire him, expel him, give him detention now, Mr. Electric. Okay, anyway, the point is they keep doing these loyalty tests to purge these experienced personnel. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be anybody who's competent left over. In fact, I would say that there's a decent chance that the majority of civil servants will remain in a position. But if you're losing 30, 40%, that workload doesn't just disappear. It gets passed on to other workers, or it doesn't get done. It doesn't get done. It's not like that workload disappears. It's not like if you just get rid of some office that's supposed to be reviewing Chinese communications, the Chinese communications stop or the Russian communications stop. It's not like if you get rid of some office that's supposed to be monitoring ISIS, or if you get rid of, for example, funding and support for things like Meals on Wheels and HHS layoffs or undercutting them, then you cannot be surprised when the Meals on Wheels program is being threatened, even though it provides more than 216 million meals a year to older and disabled people. Many of them you probably know in your life right now because it's such an expansive program. I volunteered in it in my youth. It was very fulfilling work. It's a very nice program trying to get these meals to people who cannot go out of their homes to get them themselves. And this is the type of stuff that's going to be affected. And it's not even because I think that the Trump administration has a grudge with Meals on Wheels. Like, oh, I hate Meals on Wheels. It's just that if you do this chainsaw approach that Elon Musk has been very braggadocious about, that the Trump administration has chosen to lean into, then you cannot be surprised when some of the wood chips that are flying is stuff that got caught in the chainsaw, like Meals on Wheels. And the same thing applies not only for all of this, a lot of it unconstitutional gutting of funding, even after the CR passed. You know, part of the argument that Chuck Schumer and others made for continuing the CR is, well, if we don't continue the CR, they're going to fire all these people. Well, they're doing it anyway. They're firing all these people without congressional approval, even though they have the power of the purse. It's still happening. And so now you bring that over to our intelligence services. You think they're going to be able to pick up the slack? I hope so. I mean, you want to know how bad these loyalty tests are getting? Let me show you something. Look who waddled their ass into the White House and was able to get National Security Council staffers fired. No other than far-right influencer Loon and wackadoodle Laura Loomer, 9/11 conspiracy theorist, provocateur freak, and complete moron. I mean, just to be honest, you remember when she posted those videos online and posts online claiming that she found neo-Nazis in the United States that were going to Azov to train and stuff like that, and she found this random skinhead with tattoos all over his face named Bones that said, yeah, I was in the Mariupol. I killed the Russians because I hate Jews. And then he showed her a picture, and it was almost like he taped his face over the picture of another Azov fighter. He showed the fakest documents ever. None of it lined up. And the fact, if he was able to get out of Mariupol and somehow not get caught, that means that Azov associated air resources to evacuate him out. It was such a blatantly false story that she would never correct because she doesn't care about correcting, because the problem isn't, oh, that's false. The problem is, God damn it, I got caught. That's the problem. That's the type of smear merchant she is. And here she is getting access to the White House and getting staffers who, you know what, just on the fact that they're breathing and they have the job in the first place, has much more knowledge and experience than her. She's going up there to get them purged as both a test of loyalty for the administration to show that she's loyal and she will sniff out the rats, and in order to continue to crack down on those who don't buy into maybe all the Trumpian loyalty tests. Because we did know that people trying to get picked for the FBI and other top intel positions were asked who the real patriots were on January 6th. How you're supposed to answer that and get a job in this administration, I have no idea.
CNN has learned the White House has fired multiple administration officials after the president met with a well-known far-right activist.
That's right. That activist is Laura Loomer, who you see there in red. She was seen there at the White House yesterday greeting Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Very much so there. CNN's Elena Treen outside the White House for us. Elena, your sources say Loomer urged Trump to terminate these employees. Can you tell us who they are, why they were let go?
Yeah, she actually went in, I was told, to the West Wing with a list of around a dozen names and urged President Donald Trump to fire them. A lot of this was more about loyalty tests and whether or not these people had the president's best interests at heart, at least from her point of view. Now, this was first reported by the New York Times, but what we've learned since is that the White House has actually moved forward with firing multiple administration officials. At least 3 national security staffers were also on that list. And look, it's interesting because we know that National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, he was actually meeting with the president in the Oval Office before Loomer had entered the West Wing and came in to meet with him. So he ended up staying back, and he was there while she was doing this, while she was telling him how many of the staffers who served beneath him, including his principal deputy secretary, national secretary, his deputy secretary, Alex Wong, saying that he was too hawkish, that he wasn't loyal as well.
Hey, did we get I feel like we might have got like a weird boost at some point in viewership. I think we got raided by the Ghost of Kiev or something. I don't know. My goodness. You know what? How it's weird to see CNN have to cover Laura Loomer seriously. I mean, this is the woman who handcuffed herself to Twitter HQ and put a Star of David on her chest to try to compare her getting banned from Twitter HQ to the Holocaust. And the reason she was banned was because she was calling for Muslims to be banned as taxi drivers. They're like, after a terror attack, she's like, no more Muslims should be allowed to drive cars. This is too bad. No, it's too scary. It's too scary. What the prayer rugs just flying everywhere off the streets. It's just too much. And Twitter banned her. So she decided that she was going to compare this to the Holocaust, handcuff herself to Twitter HQ doors. But the way she handcuffed herself, and when I say she's a moron, I mean that she's fucking stupid. I like, a lot of these people are like sly grifters. I think she's both a grifter and just stupid. And she has like every worst trait you can get about the MAGA movement, because she handcuffed one hand to one door handle. So when people were trying to get in, and her point was to restrict access to Twitter. But so what people did is they just pulled the other door and walked in, because there was 2 doors, because, you know, it's like the doors you open like this. It's not, they just walked around her. So it didn't achieve anything. She just looked like a clown. And I mean, she looks like a clown every other day in the way that she presents herself. On the campaign trail, I remember saying that if Harris wins, you know, the White House is going to smell like curry. And JD Vance had to go out there and say, oh, you know, I'm not really a big fan of comments like that. It doesn't matter, though. Here she is back in the White House choosing who stays and who goes. But this is the thing. This is why I think we need to define Trumpian politics through more of a court way. Like you look at a king's court, you look at the court jester, you look at the court physician, you look at all the king's horses and all the king's men. Okay, that's how you look at it. If you look at it through that context, a lot of what's going on here makes a lot more sense. What she's trying to do is, after previously embarrassing Trump by having rumors about her spreading her legs for the man on the Trump aircraft as they were flying around and such, you know, and those rumors kind of led to her, I think partially at least, being pushed away, you know. As that was going on, I think she wants to think of a way to get back in Trump's graces. Now, if you wanted to get on Trump's good side, and you are one of his minions, okay, you're not a foreign leader, you're one of the minions, you're one of the people who want to climb up the ladder, and Laura Loomer is at the bottom of the ladder. Okay, this is not somebody with institutional power. This is not somebody who is respected in any field, even her own field. Even her own field, people don't respect her, but she can go viral. And as somebody who can get people to pay attention to her, either by just the way she looks or the way she presents herself or when she acts like a freak in public, however she can do that, that's viewership, and Trump's a media man. And so that one asset has allowed her to be able to stay in Trump world. And she has maneuvered herself where, how's she going to get up in Trump world? I know, by knocking other people out. Trump wants loyalty. Trump wants to make sure that last time when people were undercutting him from doing unconstitutional actions, illegal actions, or horribly destructive actions to the United States, he wants to stop that this time. So when he announces Liberation Day tariffs of 90% on countries like Vietnam, who he wanted manufacturers to go over to as an alternative to China, kind of counteracting that U.S. policy, there's no sense to it because there's nobody in the room to tell the man no. And in fact, many of the people who would tell the man no are people who might even be crazier on a lot of these ideas than Trump himself. We're talking about people like RFK, for example, who's the top health official in the entire country, and he's taking fish medicine on airplanes. My goodness. But anyway, if you wanted to climb up in that environment, it's going to be hard to climb up by just like, oh, let me prove my expertise on X, Y, and Z, okay? I don't know if that's exactly something that's prioritized in there. Like, okay, everyone, whoever gets this ambassadorship has got to produce a report on the history of Colombian people. No, okay? It's either if you donated a lot to his campaign or you maneuvered up in the core politics, and the best way to do it is by selling out others. This one's not loyal. That one's not loyal. That one's not loyal. You don't want them to undermine you. And Laura Loomer went in there with, I believe, well over a dozen names of different staffers across the National Security Council and others that she wanted purged from the Trump administration because of their lack of loyalty to the president of the United States specifically, or the way she put it, that they don't have his specific best interests at heart. Not that they don't have the best interests of the country, not that they don't have the best interests of our economy or working people or consumers or even like the business community, if you wanted to look at it, through those eyes. But Donald Trump personally, again, that is how you climb up Trump's court ladder. That's court politics over national politics. And that's choosing Trump and getting in his good graces over the nation. Because just because somebody isn't that one, and look, having somebody that will listen to what you say and take your final offer and like take it, like if you say we're doing this, they're not going to disobey you. That's understandable. But who in that room is somebody who can push back against Trump and say, Trump, this is a terrible idea. A 90% tariff on Vietnam is going to undo a bunch of work we've been trying to do, XYZ. We're not going to be able to avoid a recession. And when the headlines say recession going into the midterms is going to mean XYZ for not only the American economy and our international leverage and economic uncertainty, but it's going to mean probably that we're going to just get crushed in the midterms. And that's going to mean a loss of power. That's going to mean that the Democrats have control of the legislature, which means that all these guts to the federal, departments won't be able to be made anymore. And they're going to restore funding. And then all this shotgun approach will be undone. And they like somebody get up there, basically say, look, you got to preserve the American economy. And what we were doing, this ripping off of the Band-Aid is more ripping off the cast when you're well away from ripping off the cast. Your bone's still sticking out, okay? But there's nobody in that room that can do that. I know, for example, that Marco Rubio was supposed to go to the conference that we had been attending every year to gather support for Ukraine. This is the first time an American president, won't be going to that conference. We're sending, and I believe this is also the first time we're not going to be confirming any aid at that conference. Marco Rubio is just going there to talk to them about, the future of the war, etc. Do you think he holds any power, Marco? Do you think he stands up to Trump as one of the few people in the room who must know that what's happening is wrong? Because from everything that I've read, Marco Rubio is boxed out. That a lot of times the way he learns of decisions is by it just being reported on the news. And he learns about it that way. And I don't know how many times that's happened. Maybe it's once or twice, and that was being blown out of proportion. But why should that be happening at all? But the Trump administration is certainly an administration where that you getting caught out of the loop is something that can be quite common. Anyway, point is, there's nobody to push back. Marco Rubio can't push back. He's not going to push back. He doesn't have the bravery to push back. I mean, Marco Rubio was dragged through the dirt. Ted Cruz was dragged through the dirt during the 2016 midterms. Their wives were called fucking ugly and shit. And you want to know what they did? They said, give me some more, right? So the idea that these are going to be the men that are going to stand up to Trump in private, if that's the type of beatings that they're willing to take in public during the primary, and Trump has certainly gotten his vice grip on the party as a whole now since then. If anything, the leverage he has only grown as he solidified his cultural control. No, I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. I'm back. You're muted? I know I'm muted. I was talking to somebody off camera. Telling me I'm muted is just telling me I did the correct thing. Thank you, Alan Nix. I appreciate it.